For centuries, an entire nation believed that anyone who touched Thor's sacred tree would be struck dead before the sun set. Warriors refused to go near it. Villagers feared even its shadow. Pagan priests claimed the mighty god himself protected the enormous oak. Then one Christian missionary stepped forward, carrying nothing but an axe and an unshakable faith in Jesus Christ. Thousands watched in complete silence, expecting him to die with the very first swing. Instead, what happened that day forever changed the history of Europe. During the early 8th century, large parts of what is now Germany remained deeply devoted to the ancient pagan gods. Forests were considered sacred places where powerful spirits were believed to dwell, and enormous oak trees dedicated to Thor stood at the center of religious ceremonies. These trees were more than symbols. They represented the power of the old gods themselves. Villagers believed storms, harvests, victories in battle, and even life itself depended upon honoring them. Pagan priests warned that anyone who dared damage one of these sacred oaks would immediately suffer divine punishment. Fear kept entire generations obedient. Far away in England, a missionary named Boniface believed God was calling him to preach the gospel among these pagan tribes. He understood the danger better than anyone. Missionaries before him had already been murdered for challenging local beliefs. Friends begged him not to go. Some warned that the Germanic tribes would never abandon traditions followed by their ancestors for centuries. Boniface answered with quiet confidence that the gospel had already transformed empires, and that no idol, no matter how feared, could stand against the living God. After years of traveling through dangerous forests, preaching in villages, baptizing new believers, and establishing churches, Boniface arrived near Geismar, where one of the most famous sacred oaks in all of Germany stood. It was known as the Oak of Thor. According to local belief, anyone who raised a weapon against it would die before finishing the first blow. News spread quickly that the foreign Christian bishop intended to cut down Thor's sacred tree. People gathered from neighboring villages to witness what they believed would be a spectacular act of divine vengeance. Pagan priests stood confidently beside the massive oak, convinced their god would defend his sanctuary. Warriors watched with folded arms. Families remained at a safe distance, unwilling to stand too close to a place where supernatural forces were expected to strike. Boniface walked calmly toward the enormous tree, carrying only a simple axe. He stopped for a brief moment, bowed his head in prayer, and then lifted the axe high into the air. The first blow echoed through the forest. Nothing happened. A second strike followed. Still nothing. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The priests began prayers to Thor, urging their god to act. Boniface continued swinging the axe with complete confidence. Each blow sent wood chips flying across the clearing, while the great oak slowly weakened before everyone's eyes. Finally, with one tremendous crack, the enormous tree collapsed to the ground. Silence covered the forest. The crowd stared in disbelief. The man who should have been struck dead remained, standing unharmed beside the fallen oak. According to early Christian accounts, many people immediately understood that Thor had not answered because he possessed no power at all. Boniface seized the moment. Standing upon the fallen trunk, he proclaimed that the God revealed through Jesus Christ alone was creator of heaven and earth. The mighty oak that generations had feared now lay broken beneath their feet. Instead of using the wood for firewood, Boniface instructed his companions to build a small chapel from the timber, transforming a place once dedicated to pagan worship into a house devoted to Christ. That single act became one of the most powerful demonstrations of the Christian faith in early medieval Europe. Thousands gradually abandoned pagan worship and accepted Christianity in the years that followed. Boniface continued preaching, founding monasteries, educating priests, translating Christian teaching, and strengthening the growing church. Throughout German lands, his courage inspired missionaries across Europe to bring the gospel into places where fear had ruled for generations. Decades later, while peacefully preaching to new converts in what is now the Netherlands, Boniface was attacked by a group of armed pagans. His companions reached for their weapons, but the elderly missionary stopped them. Holding a gospel book in his hands, he reminded them that Christ had taught his followers not to repay violence with violence. Moments later, he was killed, sealing his testimony with his own blood. Today, history remembers him as the Apostle of Germany. The mighty oak of Thor disappeared centuries ago, but the churches planted through Boniface's faith continued to grow. His story reminds us that idols often appear powerful only until someone has the courage to stand before them with unwavering faith in Jesus Christ.